The city of lights and shadows. The city was alive that night. Neon signs flickered like restless stars, spilling colors across wet sidewalks after a light drizzle. Luxury cars rolled past, their headlights slicing through the mist. The sound of laughter poured from a nearby restaurant where couples toasted with crystal glasses, while the smell of roasted chestnuts from a street vendor lingered in the air. Adrian Cole stepped out of his black limousine, his polished shoes tapping against the pavement. People turned to look, some recognizing him, the billionaire, the man who turned a small tech idea into an empire that reshaped the world. His tailored suit, his confidence, the way he carried himself, everything about him screamed power. Yet, tonight, beneath all of that wealth, his heart felt strangely heavy. He had just left a business dinner where everyone spoke about mergers, profits, and politics. But as he stood outside, waiting for his driver to circle back, something caught his eye. At first, it was only a shape in the shadows near the corner of a closed shop. A figure curled up on the cold concrete, wrapped in a blanket that looked more like a torn rag. He almost looked away. After all, the city was full of forgotten faces. But then, the figure shifted slightly, and a strand of hair fell across a thin cheek illuminated by the streetlight. Adrian froze. Time stopped, as if the whole city had been placed on mute. The cars blurred, the voices dimmed, and even the cold. Night air seemed to vanish. All he could see was her face. Elena. The name thundered in his mind like an echo from the past. His first love. His everything. The girl he once thought he would spend forever with. The girl he had lost. No, the girl who had left him without a goodbye. For a moment, Adrian thought he was dreaming. He blinked, but she was still there, hugging. Her knees, her eyes closed as if she was trying to disappear from the world. Her lips, once soft and full of laughter, now trembled with exhaustion. Her once bright eyes were hidden behind lashes heavy with sorrow. Adrian's chest tightened painfully. He remembered her so vividly. He remembered the way her laughter would light up their college campus. How they used to sit under the old oak tree, sharing sandwiches because he couldn't afford fancy dinners back then. He remembered walking. Her home in the rain, his jacket soaked but his heart warm because she held his hand. He remembered the way she whispered dreams into the night, that they would travel, build a life together, and never let go of each other. But those dreams had shattered. She was gone, and he never knew why. Years later, he built his empire. He conquered boardrooms. He bought houses in cities most people only dreamed of visiting. Yet in quiet moments, when the parties ended and the lights faded, his heart still searched for her, and tonight, in the most brutal twist of fate, he found her, alone, cold, broken. The billionaire who had everything suddenly felt powerless. His legs refused to move forward. His throat closed, his breath shallow. Memories fought with reality, leaving him paralyzed. Adrian Cole, the man who could command millions with a word, stood frozen on the sidewalk, because the woman he once loved more than life itself was sitting a few feet away. Homeless on the streets, he couldn't forget Adrian's heart hammered so hard it felt louder than the traffic around him. He wanted to move, to speak, to call out her name, but his body refused. He stood there, rooted in place, like a statue in a storm. The city had always been a place of illusions. Tall glass towers reflecting the sky, shining cars hiding broken hearts inside them, smiles that masked secrets. But nothing had ever stripped away Adrian's polished armor the way this moment did. Elena, the girl he once loved more than himself. The girl who had vanished one morning, leaving behind only a note with 4 words he still remembered like scars. "You'll be better without me." Better? He had built an empire. He had risen higher than even his younger self had imagined. Yet, staring at her now, huddled in the cold, Adrian felt like the poorest man alive. He took a step closer, his breath fogging in the night air. His mind betrayed him with memories. A college classroom where he first saw her tucked away in the back, sketching flowers in the margin of her notebook. She looked up, caught him staring, and smiled. That smile had been enough to change his life. The old library, where they spent nights studying side by side, pretending to focus but stealing glances at each other. He remembered her laughter echoing against the shelves, a melody that made even silence feel alive. The last evening they had together on the riverbank. She leaned against him, watching the sunset bleed into the water. He had whispered, "Someday, I'll give you the world." She had kissed his cheek and whispered back, "I only want you," and then she was gone. Adrian blinked, returning to the present. The world had moved on, but his heart had never healed from her absence. Now fate had dragged her back into his life, not as the girl who dreamed under the stars with him, but as a ghost of herself, fragile, weary, surviving instead of living. Cold gust of wind blew, and Elena shivered, pulling the ragged blanket tighter around her shoulders. The sight crushed him. This wasn't the Elena he knew. She had once loved painting, had once danced barefoot in the rain, had once dreamed of teaching children someday. How had those dreams ended on a cold street corner? His throat burned with questions. Where had she been all these years? Why didn't she ever reach out? How had life brought her to this place? Adrian realized he couldn't stand here any longer. His fear of rejection, his pride, his doubts, all of it shattered against the raw truth. He couldn't walk away again. He drew in a shaky breath, forcing his feet forward. Every step felt like walking toward a cliff's edge. His expensive shoes clicked against the wet pavement, each sound louder in his ears than the honking cars or the chatter of strangers. When he finally reached her, he hesitated, standing just a breath away. He lowered himself slightly, trying to see her face more clearly, and then, slowly, painfully, Elena lifted her head. Her eyes met his. The world stopped. At first, confusion flickered in her gaze. Her lips parted slightly as if she thought she was imagining him. Then, recognition crashed in and her entire face trembled. Her voice came out as a whisper, broken, almost childlike. "Adrian?" The sound of his name on her lips after so many years ripped through him like lightning. His chest tightened, his eyes stung. He had imagined this moment 1,000 times in his dreams, but never like this. Never with her shivering in the dark, broken by life. "Yes," he whispered back, his voice rough, almost breaking. "It's me, Elena." For a moment, neither moved. The city kept rushing around them, but inside their bubble of silence, it was just two souls colliding after years of separation. Adrian wanted to pull her into his arms to shield her from the world, but instead, he froze again, afraid that if he touched her, she would disappear like the ghost she had become. The trembling voice Adrian could barely breathe. The moment her broken whisper, "Adrian?" left her lips, the world felt like it cracked open. He hadn't heard her voice in years. Once, that voice had been music to him. It had carried laughter, so pure it could melt his worst days. It had carried whispers in the dark, dreams about forever, and now it was thin, fragile, trembling like glass about to shatter. Elena. The name escaped his throat, rough and uneven, like he had been holding it in all these years. Her eyes, hollow yet still carrying a flicker of the girl he once knew, widened. She quickly looked down, pulling the blanket tighter around herself, as though ashamed. "Don't look at me," she murmured, her voice breaking. "Not like this." The words pierced him deeper than any wound ever could. Adrian lowered himself to the ground, ignoring the chill of the concrete soaking through his suit. For a billionaire who lived in penthouses above the clouds, the dirty pavement was foreign. But for Elena, this had become home. That truth alone made his chest ache. "Elena," he said softly, almost pleading, "I would never look away from you." Her lips trembled, but she didn't meet his eyes. Her fingers, thin and bruised from cold, fidgeted with the frayed edge of her blanket. "You shouldn't have to see this," she whispered. "I'm not the girl you knew. That Elena. She doesn't exist anymore." Adrian's heart twisted. He remembered that girl, the one who loved painting sunsets with cheap brushes, who made him peanut butter sandwiches when he couldn't afford meals, who told him that success meant nothing if you didn't have love. But the woman in front of him, broken, weary, fragile, was still her. And he couldn't pretend otherwise. "You're wrong," Adrian said, his voice firm though his throat ached. "You're still her. I see it in your eyes. I feel it just standing here." Finally, Elena lifted her gaze, and for a fleeting second, he saw it too. The spark, buried under sorrow, but still there. Her eyes filled with tears, and one slipped down her cheek, catching the streetlight. "Why are you here?" she asked quietly. "Men like you don't stop for people like me." Adrian swallowed hard. Men like you. He had never hated wealth until now. To her, he wasn't Adrian, the boy who once held her hand under the stars. He was a man in $1,000 suit, a symbol of the world that had crushed her. He shook his head. "I didn't stop for someone on the street. I stopped for you, Elena. You." Her lips parted, but no words came. She shook her head slightly, disbelieving. "I don't belong in your world anymore." Adrian leaned closer, his voice breaking. "You've always been my world." Silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. The kind that carried years of questions, regrets, and unspoken truths. Around them, people kept moving, some staring, some indifferent. A woman in heels passed by, muttering something under her breath about spoiled rich men wasting time. But Adrian didn't hear her. The only sound he knew was Elena's uneven breathing, the fragile rhythm of a life that had survived storms he couldn't even imagine. Adrian reached out, hesitating for just a heartbeat, then gently touched her hand. It was ice cold, trembling. She flinched at first, unused to warmth, but he didn't pull away. He wrapped his larger hand around hers, steady, grounding. "Elena," he whispered, "please, tell me what happened. Where have you been? All these years?" Her chest rose and fell unevenly. For a moment, Adrian thought she wouldn't answer. Then her lips quivered, and she closed her eyes. "Life happened," she said bitterly. "Dreams broke. Promises faded. And I fell further than I ever thought possible." Her words were soft, but each one was sharp enough to carve into his soul. Adrian tightened his hold on her hand. "Then let me help you stand again. I can't lose you twice." Tears streamed down her face, and for the first time that night, she didn't pull her hand away. The bitter passed. The night air felt colder now, though Adrian's chest burned with a storm of emotions. He sat there on the hard pavement beside her, not as a billionaire, not as a man dressed in silk and power, but as someone stripped down to his barest truth, a boy who once promised her the world and failed. Elena's tears slid silently down. Her cheeks and her voice, when it came, was small and trembling, like the faint crackle of a dying flame. "You want to know what happened?" she whispered, her eyes fixed on the ground. "Everything happened, Adrian. Everything we never planned for." Adrian squeezed her hand gently, urging her to go on, though his heart already ached with dread. "I left because I thought I was saving you," she said, her lips quivering. "You were climbing, Adrian. You had interviews, investors, dreams so big they scared me. And me? I was ordinary. I had no money, no family name, nothing to offer except love. And I was terrified that one day you'd look at me and feel regret. So I made the choice first. Her words cut like blades. Adrian shook his head fiercely. Elena, no. Don't you understand? You were the reason I fought so hard. You were my anchor, my light. Without you. His voice cracked. Without you, the climb was hollow. Her eyes finally lifted to meet his, shimmering with unshed tears. Then why didn't you come for me, Adrian? Why didn't you search? The question hit him like a punch. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Because she was right. He hadn't searched the way he should have. Pride had chained him. Hurt had blinded him. When she left that note, his world collapsed. And instead of chasing after her, he had buried himself in ambition, convincing himself that work would numb the pain. I thought you didn't want me, he whispered at last, guilt weighing on every word. I thought I wasn't enough for you. Elena gave a sad, bitter laugh. And I thought the same about me. For a moment, silence fell again. The city's noise returned. Car horns, laughter from across the street, the distant wail of a siren. But between them, it was the silence of wasted years. Adrian reached up, brushing away one of her tears with his thumb. Tell me the rest, he pleaded softly. Tell me what brought you here, to this. Elena's body trembled, her thin shoulders rising and falling with uneven breaths. She closed her eyes as if gathering the courage to tear open wounds she had kept hidden. After I left, she began, her voice raw, I tried to make a life on my own. I worked in small cafes, bookstores, anywhere that would take me. For a while, I thought I'd be okay. I even painted again, sold a few pieces at street markets. But then, her voice broke. Then my mother got sick. I had no insurance, no savings. Every penny I made went to her medicine, her treatments. And when her throat tightened. When she passed, I had nothing left. Not even the strength to keep going. Adrian's vision blurred with tears. He wanted to go back in time, to take away every ounce of pain she had carried alone. His hand tightened around hers, desperate, aching. I lost the apartment, she continued, her tone bitter with shame. I lost the little jobs I had because I couldn't keep myself together. I tried shelters, but they filled fast. So, the streets became home. She let out a hollow laugh that broke Adrian's heart. Funny, isn't it? Once I dreamed of building a future with you. Now I build cardboard walls to keep out the cold. Adrian shook his head, his chest heaving. Don't say that. Don't reduce yourself to this pain. Elena, you're still the girl who believed in stars, who danced in the rain. The world tried to break you, but it didn't erase you. Her tears spilled freely now, streaking her face. She whispered, But look at me, Adrian. I'm broken. You don't. Know the nights I went hungry, the days I prayed for just a little warmth? How can you still see me the same? Adrian's throat burned. He wanted to gather her in his arms, to pour every ounce of warmth and love back into her. Because love doesn't vanish with time or circumstance, he said fiercely. Because I never stopped seeing you, even when you weren't there. His words hung in the cold night air, raw and trembling with truth. Elena turned away, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs, and Adrian sat helpless, torn apart by the knowledge that while he had been building towers of glass, she had been crumbling on the very streets he drove past. In that moment, Adrian swore silently. He would not lose her again, not to the streets, not to despair, not to the mistakes of the past. This time, he would fight for her. The choice of tomorrow, Adrian sat in silence for a moment, his hand still wrapped tightly around hers. The night around them continued. Cars hissed across the wet streets, people hurried by, neon lights flickered. But for him, the world had narrowed to this small patch of pavement where the love of his life sat broken under a torn blanket. His chest ached with a guilt too heavy to bear. All those years, he thought bitterly. All those nights I drank wine in crystal glasses, slept under silk sheets, and attended galas filled with applause. And she... He looked at her trembling hands, at the shadows under her eyes. She was surviving. Storms alone. He couldn't let her stay here. Not tonight. Not ever again. "Elena," he said softly, his voice shaking but steady with determination. "You can't stay here. Not anymore. Come with me." She flinched at his words, pulling the blanket closer around herself as if it were a shield. Her eyes darted away, filled with panic. "No," she whispered. "Don't say that. You don't understand." Adrian leaned closer, his eyes burning with emotion. "I do understand. I see what this has done to you, and I won't walk away again. Not when I found you. Not when you're here." Her lips quivered as she shook her head. "You think it's that easy? That you can just wrap me in your wealth and fix everything?" Her voice cracked, bitter but broken. "Love doesn't erase years of pain, Adrian. Money doesn't erase. The shame I feel every time someone looks at me like I'm dirt on the ground." Her words hit him like stones, but he didn't pull away. He reached out, taking her cold hands in his warm ones, ignoring how she tried to resist. "This isn't about money," he said fiercely. "This is about us, about the promises we made, under the stars, about the girl who once told me that home wasn't a place, it was a person. Don't you remember? You were my home, Elena. You still are." Her eyes glistened with tears, and her face crumbled at his words. For a second, he saw the old Elena, the girl who once lit up with hope when he whispered dreams. But then, her expression hardened with fear. "I can't," she choked out. "I don't belong in your world anymore, Adrian. Look at me. I'm ruined. I'm broken." Adrian's heart cracked, but he refused to let her slip away. He gently cupped her, face with trembling hands, forcing her to look at him. His eyes glistened, his voice trembling but raw with truth. "Then let me be the one to pick up the pieces," he whispered. "Not because I pity you, not because I want to fix what's broken, but because I love you, and because I can't live knowing you're out here while I sleep in mansions built on empty victories." Elena's tears spilled freely now, streaking her face in rivers. "Why now?" she asked, her voice a broken plea. "Why after all these years? Why didn't you come before?" Adrian's throat tightened. His silence was heavy with guilt. Finally, he whispered the truth. "Because I was a coward. I thought you didn't want me. I buried myself in success to numb the pain. But the truth is, I never stopped loving you. Not for a single day." She covered her mouth, sobbing quietly, shaking her head as if she didn't deserve his words. "I don't know how to start again," she whispered. "I don't know how to go back." Adrian pulled her closer, his forehead resting gently against hers. "Then don't go back," he murmured. "Start with me. Tonight. Just take one step. That's all I'm asking. One step away from this street, and one step closer to me." For a long time, Elena said nothing. Her body trembled as if torn between fear and longing. The city rushed around them, indifferent to their silent war. Then, slowly, painfully, her fingers curled tighter around his hand. She didn't say yes, but she didn't let go either. And for Adrian, that fragile grip was enough. It was the first step. The first. Step together for a long moment. Adrian and Elena sat in silence, Two souls bound by memories, separated by years, now colliding again under the cruel glow of city lights. The world around them didn't care. Cars roared, neon signs blinked, and strangers hurried past. But for Adrian, time had slowed into a single fragile heartbeat. Elena's thin fingers clung to his hand, trembling with uncertainty. She hadn't spoken, hadn't agreed, but she hadn't let go either. And for him, that fragile grip felt like the first crack of dawn after years of night. Adrian leaned closer, his voice low and desperate, as though each word carried the weight of his soul. Elena, I can't promise to erase the years we lost. I can't take away the pain you've lived through. But I can promise you this. You'll never face another night alone. Not if I can help it. Her eyes lifted slowly to his, glistening with tears. There was fear there, yes, but beneath it, a flicker of something else. Hope. A tiny flame that life had nearly smothered. She shook her head, her voice fragile. I don't know how to be in your world anymore, Adrian. I don't even know who I am. I'm nothing. Adrian's chest tightened. Don't you dare say that. You are not nothing. You are the same woman who taught me that dreams weren't built on money or power, but on love. You're the same girl who believed in me when no one else did. That Elena is still here. I see her in your eyes. Her lips quivered and she whispered, But what if I fall again? Adrian's voice broke as he replied, Then I'll catch you, every time, as many times as it takes. The silence stretched again, heavy with unshed words. Then, with a trembling sigh, Elena released her blanket and let it fall loosely around her shoulders. It wasn't a full surrender, but it was something. It was her way of letting go of the walls she'd built. Adrian instantly slipped off his coat, wrapping it around her. It was warm, thick, smelling faintly of cedar and him. Elena inhaled shakily, clutching it around her frame as if absorbing the safety it carried. She closed her eyes for a moment, and in that silence, a memory flickered. The old library. Adrian leaning across the table, whispering, One day, we'll have a life where you never have to worry. She had laughed then, teasing him for dreaming too big, and yet here he was, still whispering promises, still offering her the same safety he always had. Her eyes opened again, soft but uncertain. If I go with you tonight, I don't know if I'll ever fit in again. I don't want to be a burden. Adrian gently tilted her chin upward, his thumb brushing away a tear. You'll never be a burden. You'll always be my choice. Always. His voice cracked on the last word, and Elena's heart clenched. She had spent years convincing herself she was unworthy of love, that the world had left her forgotten. But in his eyes she saw something she thought was gone forever. Someone still believed she was enough. Slowly, painfully, she nodded. Adrian's breath caught, and for a moment his chest felt lighter than it had in years. Carefully he stood and offered her his hand. She hesitated, staring at it. His hand, the same one that had once held hers under the rain, the same one that now trembled as it reached for her. Her heart pounded. Then, with a fragile courage, she slipped her hand into his. And together, for the first time in years they stood, the city rushed on, but for them, the world shifted. Two broken paths, once divided, were now merging again. Adrian tightened his grip as if to swear silently that he would never let go again. They took a step forward, one step away from the cold pavement, one step toward a tomorrow neither fully understood, but both desperately needed. For Adrian, it wasn't about rescuing her. It was about finally keeping the promise he had made long ago. Someday, I'll give you the world. For Elena, it wasn't about escaping the streets. It was about finding the courage to believe in love again. And so, under the neon glow of a city that didn't notice, a billionaire and his lost love took their first step back into each other's lives, fragile, trembling, but together.